Hey everyone, how's it going today? And welcome back to another third stimulus. No, actually in today's update, fourth stimulus check unemployment benefits extension update. Because in today's update, I really just want to take a revisit once again to talk a little bit about what's been going on in the world of the fourth stimulus check. Because the story is that there's definitely talks about potentially doing some kind of fourth stimulus package. Now, at this current time, it's very, very subtle, but at least there's certainly some kind of intention or events that have been going on to try to maybe potentially make it happen. So in today's update, I really just want to talk about what's been going on in the world of the fourth stimulus check. I want to talk a little bit about Biden's infrastructure plan. And I also maybe want to talk a little bit about how the economy is doing, because it actually is very, very relevant, aside from the fact that I personally think it's actually very interesting. But actually, I think it's very, very relevant because if eventually we need to be able to go back to work, or basically honestly just to be able to do a lot of things in life, buy things, do our own personal work, pay for different things, and then of course how it can potentially impact the chances of having a fourth stimulus check. So we're going to explain everything in today's video, but as always, before we begin, make sure maybe you smash the like button in light of the fact we at least have the third stimulus package right there. Feel free to maybe consider subscribing if you guys are brand new here and interested in similar videos and also other finance topics like this. And as always, feel free to comment any questions or thoughts about honestly just really anything, or if you wanted to say hi. Always great to see familiar and also brand new faces. So with that being said, let's just get right to it. Now, a really quick jump back to the third stimulus check is that if by any chance you're still waiting for the third stimulus check, I believe this is the week that they've officially announced that they're going to be starting payments for the third stimulus check for anyone that happens to be on Social Security benefits or anything basically like SSI SSDI, veterans, or anything in that world. Pretty much, I think you guys were the ones that kind of went through a lot of different delays. The great news is that supposedly the Social Security and the IRS have officially announced that they're hoping to finally start sending their waves. So I believe it's the fourth wave of stimulus checks this week now. So hopefully you'll be able to receive it by the end of this week. And you might have even already received it, because I believe they started payments Wednesday. So technically yesterday from when this video is being made. But I always say just give a couple days more as safety just in case. Now, the story with the fourth stimulus package, and we're talking about both Biden's infrastructure plan that might include certain kinds of stimulus programs, maybe not checks, but certainly programs that will at the end of the day still stimulate the economy, even though it may not necessarily be in checks, certainly in other ways, and that may still have ways to potentially put money in your pocket. So there definitely is something there, but also about the other general programs that are being proposed right now is that there's definitely talks about trying to push for a fourth stimulus package. I think the general story right now is that when it comes to Biden's infrastructure plan, it's looking like it's probably very likely going to happen. However, right now, I believe Biden is still trying to preach for his infrastructure plan, and he's still not sure he's going to be able to gain all the support and votes that he needs to physically make it happen. Personally, in my personal opinion, I think that Biden's infrastructure plan probably has a really reasonable probability to actually go through and pass and approve. However, not necessarily in its current form right now. I wouldn't be surprised if they end up taking that plan and trying to maybe change it up, because there's definitely things in that plan that I think a lot of people actually really, really like. But there's definitely also a lot of things inside of his plan that there's a lot of senators right now that are just not fully satisfied with in general. But how this also relates is because when it comes to the fourth stimulus package is that right now there is currently talks about trying to do a monthly reoccurring payment of doing $2,000 stimulus checks reoccurring every single month until the pandemic is over. I think the general idea is that there are two talks going on. The first is trying to do a standalone bill to do the fourth stimulus package. The second now is a push that they're trying to potentially try to include it inside of Biden's infrastructure plan, which is even more true if they actually end up modifying Biden's infrastructure plan, then they can maybe try to include the checks to do it together into one final package. Even though, as some of you guys may already know, is from one of the last couple videos ago, we talked about how Biden might be trying to divide the plan, his infrastructure plan, into two parts. One that talks about the infrastructure side, and then the other that talks a lot more about the pandemic recovery aspect of trying to bring everything back to normal, they may be in one of these parts trying to squeeze the stimulus checks inside. Now, I personally think that the chances of having this stimulus package actually go through is probably really going to depend how the economy is going to go over the next couple of months, because we're actually in a very interesting economy right now, and it's really that I think a lot of people have been kind of getting the impression that most of last year, the economy, most of us probably know, is relatively pretty bad, I think, as a whole, in the sense everyone was losing their jobs. I think supposedly in total, they said that I believe about 40 something million people in total were unemployed at some point last year. However, I think that even though the majority of people, and certainly most people that will probably be watching this and following stimulus news, probably went through a lot of difficulties last year. I mean, even for me, like, as some of you guys know, is that I work in the events and the film industry, so you can only imagine when everything was kind of closed in all the venues, what happened to my industry. So I definitely feel it there. But I think the big thing that's also important to notice is that actually in reality, not every single industry actually struggled. Even though most people probably struggled in some way last year, whether this was financial, social, economic, health, because again, a lot of people's health took a massive hit, whether it was physical or mental. The real reality is that there actually were certain businesses that actually thrived last year. If you happen to work in the tech industry or know someone that works in the tech industry or just happen to follow the tech industry, especially if you're into stock investing, which we'll probably make a lot of other videos on stock investing, maybe hopefully coming soon. We'll maybe subscribe if you guys haven't done so already and you're interested in that. But the reality is that a lot of companies in the tech industry actually did really, really well. I believe, if I remember correctly, a lot of companies like Amazon, of course, Zoom, Netflix, Disney, all of those digital companies, because so many people were staying at home, they actually made a fortune during last year. They made actually a fortune, like a massive amount of money. I like something in, you can only imagine, like the millions, maybe even billions for all we know. But why this is actually related is that because when it comes to the recovery from the pandemic, we're kind of in something really called a K-shape. And what this really means is that it's kind of in this, it's this kind of economic situation where you're kind of coming out of a really rough economy, but the reality is that you kind of have half of the people, or certainly a percentage of the people, that are actually thriving economically and actually getting even richer, while there's another group that's actually struggling even greater. So I think how this really relates is that because if they're going to potentially try to do some kind of fourth stimulus package, I think that maybe one of the motivations to maybe do it might actually be to try to decrease or try to close up that wealth gap that's really going on right now. And I think that a lot of people are believing that by one of the arguments or one of the reasons that for the support of the fourth stimulus package is that it may actually be necessary going forward, not necessarily because of course there's a lot of people going back to work, but a lot more in order to control the wealth gap. And it's not really a surprise, because if I remember, I think the statistic stood that supposedly more than half of the people in this country don't even have $1,000 saved. So it's crazy to think that if you have $1,000 inside of your bank account, you're actually richer than half of this country, which is the really, really insane statistic that's kind of floating around right now. So I think that that part of the economy, how it recovers and trying to close up that gap, aside from just being relatively interesting to follow up, I think that's going to potentially really, really impact the chances of having a fourth stimulus package. Now, if I had to personally share my personal opinion, I personally think at this time, the chances of having a potential fourth stimulus package is actually very, very possible. However, I would not bet on it at this time, because I think that especially since the third stimulus package was finally recently just approved, which is the really great news, maybe smash the like button if you guys haven't done so already. I think that ideally a lot of the politicians are much more likely to maybe want to sit on the third package to kind of let it ride and then see how, as just mentioned, is the economy is going to be going before they try to commit to a fourth stimulus package. So I think it's definitely a very, very possible idea, but I would not necessarily bet on it at this current time. And I think it's also really important to notice is that even if the stimulus package does not come in the form of checks, it is still very, very much possible that they may still be doing other stimulus programs. And this is actually very reasonably likely to really think is that they may not necessarily do stimulus checks, but they may be doing other kinds of programs that, the long story short, is that at the end of the day will still in some ways help to stimulate the economy, even if it's not necessarily through checks. And where we basically come in is that there may still be doing other programs that can at least still put money into your pocket at the end of the day, if not actually in some cases possibly even more than the $2,000 stimulus check, whether this means like a further unemployment extension, more child tax tax credit for basically kids, whether this is like other kinds of programs, so like for example like food stamps, rental assistance, mortgage assistance, social security, and it really just goes on and on. Student loans, that's another huge one I know they're definitely in the talks of doing right now. But essentially, that's pretty much what I just wanted to share in today's update. So hopefully you guys just found that relatively insightful, because I know some people were asking about it. Maybe consider smashing the like button if you guys haven't done so, and you guys hopefully didn't. Consider subscribing if you're interested in similar videos like this one. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, stay safe, stay well. Feel free to really comment any questions, thoughts about honestly just really anything at all. And hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.